Have you ever felt that unsettling pang when someone else succeeds? Or maybe a simmering bitterness when you feel deeply wronged?
Hmm.
These aren't just, fleeting feelings. They're powerful, often kind of hidden human emotions that can truly shape our lives.
Absolutely.
So today we're doing a deep dive into two really profound human experiences, envy and resentment.
Mhm.
Our mission, really, is to unpack what these emotions truly are, where they come from, the profound impact they have, and crucially, how we can maybe move beyond them.
Right.
Our sources describe them not just as emotions, but as archetypal patterns, these universal blueprints sort of that influence our lives.
That's a key concept, the archetypal nature of it.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to explore what's really going on beneath the surface of these incredibly common experiences, the ones we all feel sometimes. Okay, so let's maybe start by defining our terms. What's the fundamental difference between envy and resentment, according to our sources? They can feel similar, right? But they're distinct.
That's right. It's really crucial to distinguish them because while they can both feel pretty corrosive, their origins and how they show up, well, they're quite different. Our sources describe resentment as a toxic mindset. And what they mean by that is quite profound. It can literally prevent individuals from loving.
Wow, prevent them from loving.
Yeah, it consumes your emotional capacity, basically, leaves no room for genuine connection, essentially poisoning your ability to give and receive love. It's described as a way people go to war with others.
Like an internal war.
An internal one that often spills outward. It's a destructive force that, as the sources say, wastes precious life force. It often stems from feeling, cheated or unsupported, especially when we believe we're entitled to something we haven't received.
Entitled, okay, that's a big one.
It is. Now, envy, often linked with jealousy, is different. It manifests as an inability to bear to see other people have a good time or succeed.
So it's more about their good fortune bothering you.
Exactly. At its core, the sources say it's a fear of empowering others. This isn't just wishing you had their car or their job or whatever. It's deeper. It's this belief that success is like a finite pie.
Ah, the scarcity mindset.
Precisely. If someone else gets more, you somehow have less. And the key insight here is that this belief, it's an illusion, really. It tracks you. This often leads to withholding compliments or even opportunities from others.
Sabotaging almost.
Could be. It's rooted in a competitive desire, to win that race or be better than others. And it's specifically noted for its presence when people are, quote, jealous when they see love being dished out to someone else.
Okay, that paints a really clear picture of what these emotions look like, on the surface. But what's really driving them underneath all that? Because it sounds like they're coming from something much more foundational within us.
Absolutely. Yeah, the sources point to several deep psychological and even spiritual dynamics. At the root, both envy and resentment are often consequences of feeling disempowered.
Disempowered, okay.
Yeah. When individuals lack a developed sense of self-esteem, they might find themselves tweaking or correcting others, constantly finding fault.
Oh, yeah, but people like that.
Right. And it's driven by a fear, really, a fear of allowing others to shine or even just be agreeable. The emphasis here is that developing genuine self-esteem is crucial to overcoming these patterns.
So it starts with how you feel about yourself.
Very much so. Then there's the role of the ego. The ego's desire for recognition, for control. That can lead straight to resentment when it feels unacknowledged or threatened.
Makes sense.
Envy, on the other hand, seems to come more from that illusion we mentioned, the illusion that empowering others somehow diminishes your own power.
Right, the zero-sum game idea again.
Exactly. It prevents individuals from recognizing their true capacity and that profound mystical truth that a rising tide lifts all ships.
So this rising tide idea, it's about seeing success not as that zero-sum game, but as something that actually expands for everyone involved.
Exactly. It's a fundamental shift from scarcity thinking to, abundance thinking. Furthermore, resentment is frequently rooted in taking external events or others' actions personally.
Oh, that's interesting. Even when it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah, even when they're completely unrelated. Blaming others for your situation instead of taking personal responsibility, that just fuels these negative emotions and prevents any real healing. You just stay stuck.
Right, the blame game.
And the sources also point out that people might cling to their wounds, cling to past suffering.
Why would they do that?
Well, maybe using it to justify negative behaviors or perhaps to gain sympathy. It's this kind of rewarding myself for suffering mindset where remaining in pain feels like it has some kind of payoff, which just perpetuates the resentment.
That sounds like a tough cycle to break.
It really is. And finally, that deep-seated belief in entitlement we touched on earlier, that can cause huge resentment when perceived entitlements aren't met. It can lead individuals, the sources say, to lose their health and even fight to the death over what they believe they are owed.
That's a powerful point about entitlement, fight to the death. Can you give us maybe a common everyday scenario where this entitlement might subtly manifest and cause resentment? Something less dramatic, maybe.
Sure. Well, think about someone at work who believes they're owed a promotion simply because they've been there the longest, regardless of their actual performance.
Okay, yeah.
Or someone who expects constant praise from their partner without really earning it or reciprocating.
Yeah.
When those expectations aren't met because maybe they weren't realistic or communicated, resentment can easily fester. And they might indeed fight, maybe not literally, but through arguments, passive aggression, making things difficult to prove they were wronged, often hurting themselves in the process.
Right, right. So, okay, these clearly aren't just random feelings then. They're deeply connected to our core beliefs about ourselves, about the world. So if we hold on to them, what are the real-world consequences? What does it actually do to us?
Well, the consequences are significant and deeply negative, impacting your life force, your well-being, everything, really.
T-force.
Yeah, wasting time and energy on resentment and bitterness, it actively depletes what the sources call your precious life force. It just drains you. And resentment, as we said, can literally stop individuals from loving. It also makes healing incredibly difficult because it keeps you anchored in dense perceptions. Think of it like being stuck in thick mud. You can't see clearly. You can't access higher, more expansive ways of thinking. It genuinely blocks healing.
That sounds really isolating.
It is. And envy, in turn, can lead to actively sabotaging others' opportunities. Or just withholding compliments, withholding encouragement. This is linked to what our sources call the destroyer archetype.
The destroyer.
Yeah, that part of us that seeks to tear down rather than build up. And critically, when we hurt others out of our own resentment, we become a perpetrator. No different, really, from those who caused our original hurt. It allows us to just pass on our suffering to others.
Oh, wow. So you become the thing you resent.
In a way, yes. Ultimately, clinging to these emotions keeps individuals in, let's say, a lower state of consciousness. It hinders spiritual evolution. It hinders clarity. It just keeps you dense and heavy.
That's a powerful and, frankly, quite sobering picture. It really seems these emotions don't just hurt others, they profoundly harm us, the ones holding on to them.
Absolutely. That's a crucial point.
So if that's the cost, what do our sources suggest we can do about it? I mean, what strategies do they offer to navigate and maybe move beyond these really destructive patterns?
Well, the good news is there are pathways. There are actionable strategies for liberation. Our sources lay out several key shifts, and they mostly start with deep inner work.
Okay, inner work. Like what?
Well, one key is confronting specific archetypes within ourselves. Developing self-esteem involves challenging the inner child archetype.
Wait, can you quickly clarify what each of those archetypes represents in this context? What part of us are we talking about when we say child? Or I think you mentioned prostitute archetype earlier.
Yes, absolutely. Good question. So the child archetype in this context represents our unhealed wounds from childhood, things that lead to dependency or maybe overly emotional reactions now.
Okay.
The saboteur is that internal voice that undermines our own success. Or, in the case of envy, makes us afraid to see others succeed. It whispers doubts. The victim archetype thrives on being wronged, right? It loves to blame others and avoids taking personal responsibility. And the prostitute archetype, as our sources use the term, is about selling out our integrity or our truth for perceived security or acceptance, compromising our values, basically.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. So recognizing these patterns within ourselves is the first step.
It's a huge first step. And building on that, honesty and self-awareness are just crucial. We need to be brutally honest sometimes about these feelings and their true motivations. Why am I really feeling this?
That takes courage.
It does. It requires deep self-reflection about the choices we make and, importantly, what we might be gaining, even if it's negative, from holding on to these emotions. Is there some weird payoff? And alongside this is taking personal responsibility and letting go of blame. Healing involves holding oneself accountable for one's own actions and reactions and ceasing to blame others for personal unhappiness. It means stopping that internal narrative that constantly justifies our anger and our wounds.
So it's about shifting from this happened to me to something more like, okay, this happened. Now what is my role in this and how do I move forward?
Precisely. Exactly that shift in perspective. Another major strategy, and this one can be tough, is actively empowering others.
Empowering others.
Yeah,
Even when you feel envious.
especially then, maybe. Overcoming the fear of empowering others is presented as a really significant obstacle in spiritual growth. So, consciously choosing to empower others, maybe through a supportive word, a genuine compliment, offering an opportunity that's described as a powerful act. It benefits the whole, and ultimately, it benefits you too. Remember the rising tide.
Right. The rising tide lifts all ships. Okay.
Then there's detachment, cultivating an impersonal view, learning not to take things so personally all the time.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But viewing situations from a higher, more impersonal or even cosmic perspective, as the sources put it, it helps to dismantle the anger, the rage, the need to judge. It allows you to see the bigger archetypal drama at play rather than getting completely lost in your own personal story. Helps you zoom out.
Zoom out. Okay. I like that.
And forgiveness. This is presented as a mystical act.
Mystical. What does that mean here?
It means it's profoundly transformative, almost a counterintuitive choice.
Uh-huh.
It involves, and this is a powerful phrase, crucifying the desire to inflict suffering in return for your own pain.
Wow. Crucifying the desire.
Yeah. Essentially choosing to break the cycle of retaliation, to truly release the venom of hatred, even when every fiber of your being wants justice or revenge. It's a choice to go against what my reason wants me to do.
That's huge.
It is. And instead of passing on suffering, we can try to reframe our painful experiences into wisdom, like looking for the phoenix in the ashes.
Finding the growth in the hardship.
Exactly. Finding the growth, the resilience, the new beginnings that can emerge even from deep suffering, rising stronger because of it, not in spite of it.
Okay.
And remember, every choice is an act of power. Consciously choosing these higher responses over the purely reactive ones, that's key. Finally, cultivating humility helps curb that arrogance, that desire to control everything. It fosters a willingness to learn and accept what is. And related to that, recognizing that fundamentally, nobody owes you anything.
Oof, that one lands hard. Nobody owes you anything.
It's a profound realization, isn't it? But the sources suggest it can truly set you free. Free from fear, free from false security, built on expectations of others.
Okay, if we connect all this to the bigger picture then.
Right.
These strategies, they really highlight the power we actually have, don't they? The power to transform our own internal landscape, to actively choose a different path. It feels like it's about taking that agency back.
It absolutely is. That's the core message, I think. What's clear from the sources is that these aren't just passive emotions that happen to us. They are, on some level, choices we make consciously or more often unconsciously.
Right.
And by understanding their origins, their consequences, we gain the ability, the agency, as you said, to transform them, to choose responses that foster growth and connection rather than bitterness and isolation.
So, okay, we've really dug deep today. We've explored how envy and resentment are these profound, often really destructive forces, rooted in feelings of disempowerment, ego, clinging to past hurts, all that heavy stuff. But the good news is, our sources provide these clear pathways towards liberation. Things like self-awareness, taking personal responsibility, actively empowering others, forgiveness even when it feels impossible, and making conscious choices.
Yeah, the path is there. It requires effort, for sure, but it's there.
What's really clear, as you just said, is that these aren't just passive emotions. They are choices we make, consciously or unconsciously. And by understanding them, we get that agency back, the power to transform them into something that actually fosters growth and connection. So thinking about all we've discussed, especially around choice and personal responsibility and entitlement, here's something to maybe mull over. What is one small entitlement you might be holding on to, maybe without even fully realizing it, that if you could release it, might free up a significant amount of your own precious life force?